Hello everybody, how you all doing? I'm Hank Wilson and this is The Hidden History of Texas. This is a new series I want to start. It's called Extreme Weather Events. I'm going to talk about a bunch of things. And this is the introductory episode. Now, first of all, as you can tell, I'm an old dude, so sorry about that, or not really. But I also talk with my hands, and that's just kind of the way I am. Now, Texas is a land of extremes. From the dry deserts of the Trans-Pecos to the humid Gulf Coast, from the hill country, the rolling hills here in the hill country where I live, to the prairies. No state in America faces such a wide spectrum of natural fury. The very size and diversity of Texas means that when disaster comes, it comes in many forms. We have hurricanes that drown entire cities, flash floods that sweep away homes in the night, tornadoes that reduce downtowns to rubble, droughts that starve farms and farmers for years, and even man made catastrophes born of fire, gas, and explosives. When it comes to disasters, in some ways the saying, everything is bigger in Texas, well, is truly borne out. Disasters here are not just local events. They ripple outward, changing laws, inspiring massive engineering feats, and reshaping the way communities think about safety, survival, and resilience. Now, Texas has always lived on the edge of disaster, on the edge of disaster. Rivers can rise seemingly from nowhere and engulf entire communities in minutes. Skies can turn the color of midnight even while the sun is high overhead. Our coastlines open directly onto one of the most volatile seas in the world. Texas appears to always be on the edge of some type of disaster or calamity. The stories of our disasters seem endless and stretch back our entire history. Yet, for every story of destruction, there is another of survival. From Indianola in 1875 to Kerrville in 2025, Texans have been tested again and again. And each time we rebuild. We have to remember that every natural disaster not only destroys, it also reshapes, teaches, and tests. The lessons written in water, wind, and fire have reshaped the state. They live in the seawall that guards Galveston, the flood tunnels beneath San Antonio, in the reservoirs that dot the landscape, and in the emergency alerts that now flash on every phone. But more than that, they live in the people, the farmers who endured drought by sheer persistence, families who returned to homes washed clean by flood, the volunteers who launched boats into hurricane waters without hesitations. Disasters also strip away illusions of control, but they also reveal something deeper, the stubborn hope that defines Texas. To tell the story of these floods and tragedies is not simply to recount loss, but to honor resilience. It is to remember that while nature and chance will always strike, the spirit of a people is not so easily broken. Yet for all the destruction, Texas and Texans are also defined by how we respond. Neighbors form bucket brigades before help can arrive. Volunteers in boats turn into rescuers overnight. Community gathers in high school gyms, churches, and football fields to grieve, to heal, and to rebuild. Out of tragedy, Texans have created seawalls, levees, reservoirs, and emergency systems. But more importantly, we forge traditions of grit and compassion that endure long after the waters recede and the winds die down. Now, this series of videos will tell stories of some of the greatest hurricanes and floods in Texas history. Like I said, not as cold statistics, but as human stories of survival, heroism, and change. For instance, in 1875, a hurricane wiped out the city of Indianola, which was a major entry point into Texas at that time. The city had a population of about 5,000, but on September 15th of that year, a powerful hurricane struck, killing between 150 and 300 people, and almost destroying the town. Well, but Indianola was rebuilt, only to be wiped out on August 19th, 1886, 11 short years later, by another intense hurricane followed by a fire. Now, it has never been rebuilt and stands as a ghost town along the Texas coast. Okay, but first, before we tell too many stories, and in this episode, there's two concepts and terms we must understand. What is a hurricane and what are flash floods? And why are they so dangerous and deadly? Well, hurricanes. Imagine you're standing right on a coastline on the beach, okay? You're standing out and you're looking out over the water, all right? You're on the shore, looking out on the ocean. Water's warm, and that warmth fuels the air above it like steam rising from a pot. That warm, moist air starts to lift up the sky. As it rises, cooler air rushes in to take its place, and the cycle keeps going, building energy. Now picture that cycle spinning like a giant pinwheel in clouds. That's the birth of a hurricane. A hurricane has a calm, almost eerie center called the eye. Around it is the eye wall, where the winds are at their fiercest and the rain comes down in sheets, stretching out far out into the rain bands, are the rain bands. These are long arms of the storms that can reach hundreds of miles. So, what is a hurricane really? Well, it's nature's massive heat engine, preserved by the ocean, spinning across the sea with winds faster than a race car. Beautiful from a distance, but powerful and dangerous up close. Hurricane strength is based on wind speed and rated on a scale of 1 to 5. Category 1 has winds of 74 to 95 miles per hour. Most houses can withstand that. Category 2, 96 to 110 miles per hour. Category 3, now we're talking something special. Category 3 is 111 to 129 miles per hour. Your home's not going to stand, especially not a mobile home or a modular home. Category 4 is 130 to 156 miles per hour. A lot of buildings are going to come down. Category 5, that's 157 miles per hour or higher. Think about that. If you're outside facing winds up to 150 miles per hour, you don't stand a chance. Property destruction is assured, and there's also what is known as the storm surge. That's when the ocean or Gulf sends out tons of water over the land. And when coupled with the rain, well, it's easy to understand why lives are lost. Now, Texas has had its fair share of hurricanes. But hurricanes are not the only threat. Well, in fact, though, they are a major threat because since 1850, 31 tropical systems have hit the state in August, while 29 have hit in September. All 9 Category 4 hurricanes to have hit the state made landfall in one of those 2 months. Now, we're almost done with September, and we haven't had one yet this year, so it's okay. Now, flooding and floods have also been known to cause a disaster here in Texas. Now, there are really 2 types of floods, according to the National Oceanic Administration. Now, there's 2 types. There's a flash flood and then there's a flood. And according to NOAA, flooding is an overflowing of water onto land that is normally dry. Makes sense, right? Floods can happen during heavy rains, when ocean waves come on shore. Remember I mentioned the storm surge. When snow melts quickly. We don't have that problem here in South Texas. And actually, I don't think we had that problem very much anywhere in Texas. Maybe out in West Texas near New Mexico, and maybe down in the Big Bend where there's mountains, but I kind of doubt it. When ocean waves come on ashore, okay, and when snow melts quickly, like I said, or when dams or levees break. Damaging flooding may happen with only a few inches of water, or it may cover a house or a rooftop. Floods can occur within minutes or over a long period, and they may last days, weeks, or longer. Floods are the most common and widespread of all weather-related natural disasters. However, flash floods are the most dangerous kinds of flood because they combine the destructive power of a flood with incredible speed. Flash floods occur when heavy rainfall exceeds the ability of the ground to absorb it. Now, that happens a lot here in the Texas Hill Country. Okay, that's what happens. A lot of the stories I'm going to tell you in future episodes, that's exactly what happened. Now, they also occur, NOAA goes on to say, they also occur when water hits normally dry creeks, happens here, or streams, happens here, or enough water accumulates for streams to overtop their banks, causing rapid rises of water in a short amount of time. They can happen within minutes of the causative rainfall, limiting the time available to warn and protect the public. Both types of floods have devastated Texas, but in my opinion, flash floods are infinitely worse. Now, when it comes to disasters, we must remember that when the waters recede and the dust settles, well, what remains is commonly known and is basically the community memory and the will to face whatever comes next. That is the enduring legacy of Texas and the disasters we have faced, and the reason these stories must be told. Now, before I can go on, weather names. I have a friend who's a very strange person, and asked me a question, which actually is a really good question. I kind of had to look it up. And it was, well, why do hurricanes have names but floods don't? Well, so I went on to my faithful computer and Googled it. And the answer I got was hurricanes are given names to improve public awareness. Makes sense. Streamline communication during forecasts. Makes sense. And warnings. And we get warnings with hurricanes. And aid in historical record keeping, especially because they can last for days and multiples can occur at once. Floods lack unique names because they are more localized, are often sudden events, and don't typically last long enough to warrant individual unique identifiers. Well, so then she asked me another question. Well, where do they get their names? I went, well, they pick them out of a list of A through Z. And said, well, how come, when did men, they start naming them after men? I went, I don't know, but I'll find out. Well, it turns out hurricanes were not officially named after men until 1979, when the practice of alternating, not alienating, male and female names was introduced in the Atlantic Basin after starting with male names in the Eastern Pacific in 1978. Before this, from 1953 to 1978, the United States had exclusively used female names for tropical storms. Okay? So that's the reason. Now, in the future, episodes are going to cover the 1900 Galveston hurricane. That's the next episode. Then we're going to talk in the 1960s and 70s. We're going to call it the Mean Girls, Hurricanes Carla, Celia, Beulah, and Claudette. 80s, it's the Bad Boys, Hurricanes Humberto, Ike, and Harvey. Then we're going to talk about floods. We're going to talk about the 1908 Trinity River flood up near Dallas, 1921 San Antonio flood. 1935 was a wet year, Big Three, Blanco River flood, Colorado River flood, and Houston all flooded in that year. In 1957, 1981, and 1998 Central Texas floods. The one in 1957 came at the end of a 10-year drought, the worst drought in Texas history. 2002, 2015, we're going to talk about more Central Texas floods. Central Texas is where I live. I'm real familiar with these floods. And then finally, we're going to talk about the 2025 Kerrville and Central Texas floods. The one in Kerr County got most of the news, obviously, for horrible, sad reasons. But there was also floods taking place around Central Texas, and we'll talk about that too. So I hope you stick around and join me on this adventure. Now go ahead, subscribe to my channel. You know, deep inside you want to subscribe to the channel of the old man who's talking about, the hidden history of Texas. And this has been the hidden history of Texas. And I'll talk to you next week. Y'all be good now. Peace.